here. Of audio.
Okay.
All yours.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for attending. This is the new Paltz Planning Board meeting, August 16th, 2022. Tonight, we have some administrative business that we need to cover. We do have some public comments. And we will have a public hearing followed by application reviews. 1, 2, 3, 5, 4, 5 application reviews. So with that in mind, we're going to get started. So the first thing we need to do is approval of the minutes from the August 2nd meeting.
3 of us.
So you were not here. Were you?
I was,
You were-
yes, last meeting I
Okay,
was.
last meeting, okay. So did you get a chance to look at the minutes from the August 2nd meeting?
August,
Yes.
oh, yeah, yes.
Okay, did everyone got a chance to look at any edits, any comments, any changes that need to be made?
Looked great to me.
Yeah.
Rachel?
Yes. There were like a couple little blanks to fill in, I guess, but everything looked fine.
Okay. So then I will need a motion to approve the minutes from August 2nd.
So
So
moved.
motion.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we do have approval of the minutes from the August 2nd meeting. Next thing we're going to do is ask for updates from the Village of New Paltz Board of Trustees and Environmental Planning Board. Do we have Will here?
Yes, I'm here. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for attending. Not a whole lot to say, other than the village board met last week and discussed a new parking system, metered system, and a system in order to enforce parking. I was not able to attend. I was out of town for the meeting, but they also discussed the 2 cottages that you approved. And I don't have the results of that conversation, but I'm sure we can fill you in next week or next time we meet.
Okay. Do we have any updates from the Ulster County Planning Board? No? Okay.
No,
All right, so we'll move on then. So we do have comments, and I would like to first make a comment that comes from the chair of the board. We as a board have worked to provide the greatest possible freedom for applicants and board members by using Zoom for both applicants and members. Beginning in September, I am requesting that all board members and applicants appear in person at the planning board meeting. The reasoning behind this is that during live meetings with in-person attendance, a greater level of civility and commodity occurs. This is a volunteer board. Members are taking time out of their week to prepare and out of their day to attend. They deserve the utmost respect, and in turn, the applicants deserve the same respect. This seems to be accorded better when parties are present in attendance and seated before each other. The remote appearance does not appear to provide that same level of civility. To those who appear remotely, please understand the technology we are employing does not allow for a conversation when voices are raised, talking over each other, and interruptions occur. The meetings devolve into rancorous arguments. With that in mind, I'm asking that applicants allow conversations and statements between board members and their consultants and attorneys to occur uninterrupted. Likewise, the board will allow you to present and answer uninterrupted. As well, this is not a court of law. This is a volunteer planning board. In short, I ask that we remember and practice the same rules we learned in elementary school. Be polite. Do not shout or yell. Do not interrupt. Speak in an indoor voice. And once again, be polite. Thank you. That is my statement. So next we need to look at other comments that may have been made or presented to us. And I believe there are a few. Is that correct? Okay. Do you have those handy or printed out?
Yeah. The letter that you received today
Okay.
from Ann Muller. Here, commenting on the subdivision and prospect and Henry W.
Yes. Okay,
And there's a second comment from Karen Reddy. I believe she just joined the meeting, actually, Samantha Reddy, who also sent a comment about the same application.
very good. So let's start with the comment from Ann Muller, who was not able to appear tonight. It says to John Litton Chair, New Paltz Village Planning Board regarding Floyd Kniffen Development Program Proposal. As the owner of 38 Prospect Street for close to 30 years, I'm requesting that our concerns be presented to the New Paltz Village Planning Board at the next meeting. I was just recently contacted by Mr. Kniffen, who informed me that he had bought the treed land next to our house and planned to develop it. He requested that I push back our driveway that has been there since we bought the house and said it was out of compliance. What I would like is for banging to go on for months and years while he puts up structures so close to the property line that our driveway is a concern to him. Since he claims that our existing driveway is an eyesore to people in his non-existent house, I suggest that he relocate or redesign the proposed house. One easy way to do that is to leave a substantial buffer of trees. It would benefit both the non-existent neighbor, the existent neighborhood, the existing birds, and would create a visual barrier to hide our driveway. We are counting on the New Paltz Village Planning Board to check all the possible impacts of removing mature trees and replacing them with asphalt and concrete on a slope. In addition to water flow and pollution, we have concerns that construction noise will or could continue for possibly years and make our neighboring houses unlivable. So for the sake of impacts on the aesthetics, environment, and livability of the neighborhood homes, we urge that as many trees as possible be left, even if that means reducing the size of the houses or reducing the number of homes on the site. Thank you for your consideration of these concerns. Very sincerely, Ann Muller, owner 38 Prospect Street. So we have that, and then we have a second comment, I believe you said from
Samantha Reddy?
Ms. Reddy. Are you present and able to read your comments?
I think she just connected again. Wait a minute.
Ms. Reddy, are you here? Okay.
She's muted, it looks like. It's at PG. Oh no, maybe that's somebody else. PG ready.
There's feedback on her line.
Okay.
Do you want me to read the,
If you would, please.
Samantha, I'll read for you.
I'm right here. Can you hear me? I'm sorry. I'm traveling today, and I was trying to be present. You're trying to reach me, Samantha Rady, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay, I'm here. Is it too loud, or are you okay?
We're just fine. Go right ahead.
Okay. So I just wanted to. I live on Carolyn Way. I've been living there for 5+ years, and it's been a very quiet, private street. And I think my biggest concern is the length of the proposed project, as well as the both visual and the noise to our community. I have a very young child, and I'm quite concerned with construction vehicles and a number of turning the whole really block into a construction zone for an extended period of time. And my request would be to a way to enforce the time limit, but also provide some safety and security measures.
Okay. So to read more directly from her letter, if you don't mind, Ms. Reddy,
Sure.
says a plan to outline timeline for the construction of these 4 homes. I would hope all parties, the village, the neighbors and the builder would want this to be completed in an efficient and timely manner. If there are any construction materials, i.e. prefab, that can expedite this, I would appreciate consideration. We as neighbors would like to see this completed as fast as possible, ideally under a 2-year time period. If you can provide us with a breakdown or strategy of plans, month 1 to completion of home 1 by such and such time, etc., that would be helpful. Hours, daily timing of work to be done, I work from home, and this construction will be a direct disturbance for me to deal with numerous conference calls at all hours. What are the hours of construction? Are they Monday through Friday, 8 to 5? If we can request that the direct neighbors can be notified in advance via email, 48 hours of any large blasting trees being knocked down, etc. Protective fence. Some sort of fence or protective safety bordering on the side of Caroline Way to be provided by Kniffen. There are a number of children who live on the street, my son being under the age of 2, and I don't feel safe with large construction vehicles operating so close to our house. Additional safety and traffic measures to be added with the construction, i.e. signage on Henry W. Dubois and Prospect, slow down construction zone, etc. This is a very high traffic street, and I anticipate that if a large truck is blocking Caroline Way's entrance, it could be a potential hazard. So those were the comments that were made on the letter, and Ms. Reddy, we appreciate you taking the time to read those in. Those comments are collected, and they will be considered as we discuss more and more and delve farther into this project.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. So we will look at those as we move forward here. Are there any other people who are speaking for public comments? So yes, sir, if you would please. You'll just come right up to this table and have a seat.
How many people are on this list?
There are a number of them, but there are 2 of us right here, and then if you give a copy to our project coordinator, she can make sure that they are distributed properly.
So, thanks.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, so my name is Ed Burke. I own the property at 10 Mohonk, which is next to 42, I think it's South Chestnut. And they're looking to change the driveway from South Chestnut to Mohonk.
Correct.
I do not have a problem with them putting in the driveway. I understand the need for it. It's a safety issue. I just do have a concern about the visual impact
Okay.
on my property. That first picture, as you can see, is the view that's been there since both those houses have been built. What I'm hoping not to see 6 cars sitting there in the backyard. So I was hoping that during this review, there could be some discussion about putting in some type of a buffer so that we don't need to see the cars coming and going. The second picture, that's the view from the road. That's my public comment.
Okay. No, we appreciate that. The gentleman who is doing the construction is here tonight, and that's
I spoke with him yesterday.
Okay.
I let him know what my concerns were.
sure. And any resolution,
We just spoke about it yesterday.
Okay.
So I told him I would be coming here tonight.
Okay.
Sam.
Yeah.
And speaking with you and letting you know, so.
Okay.
That's it.
We appreciate you taking the time. We'll certainly bring this up tonight when we're talking to Sam.
Great, appreciate it.
Thank you. And yes, sir.
So I've
My name is Perry Goldshine. I also live on Caroline Way, number 10 Caroline Way. I'm commenting on the Kniffen project, TV 21 and 21. The first, I guess I have participated in earlier, the last 2 or 3 weeks, board meetings on this matter, and I have made some public comments, and I just wanted to request each time I make the comments, I do email them in as well. So that there's a written copy and that they be accurately reflected in the minutes. There was a pretty fair discrepancy between the comments I made the last meeting on July 19th and what was reflected in the minutes. So I have respectfully request, at least looking at the written, if there's something missed to accurately summarize the comments.
Okay, what was the discrepancy?
Honestly, the comments didn't make sense to me. There was a sentence or two on them, and I had a fair list that I emailed. I could pull it up here and read them again, but if you look at the email comments, you see the clear difference.
Okay, if you would please, if you could send another email, a copy to our project coordinator, and she will make sure that she distributes that out to each of us, so that we can make sure that there are no discrepancies and that we get an accurate reflection of what you said.
All right, thank you.
Certainly.
Just to note that I can revise the minutes to reflect that, but also any letters that we receive are added to the application folders as well. So apologies if they didn't line up exactly, but the data is there in the folders too for review.
All right, thank you. The second item was a comment on the time limits for the project, which is similar to what Samantha Ratty, number 2 Caroline Way, had covered. And we remain, I think all the neighbors remain concerned about the length of time. It was brought up as an issue actually by board member Rachel Ladaka at the last meeting. And that it would be a fairly sizable disturbance to the neighborhood because of the 4 different lots, and she wondered how much time that they would take and what series they'd be developed and how much time that would take. And I wanted to convey also, that was one of our concerns initially. I wanted to make it clear again how concerned we are about that. This is 4 lots, Caroline Way, and 5 homes on that are divided from those lots, not by a public street, by a narrow private road. And so we are most directly impacted. It's an unusual configuration in that lot, especially for subdivided lots that be created. And so that length of time with the heavy equipment that would be involved both during construction, potentially left over after, both visually and from an auditory standpoint, the amount of sound during construction, we're quite concerned about. There is a village code section that addresses that, section 178-14 of the code. And we respectfully request, pursuant to that code, that the board limit the period for improvements. And the wording there is to 1 year, which I know may not be adequate, but for such other period as it may determine appropriate. So I please request the board to the board's attention to that section and to consider that accordingly. On these 4 lots. I do not know how the logistics of that work. Mr. Kniffen responded to the concern that he can't say because he sells, the plan is to develop and sell the lots individually, and that there was no way to determine how long that would take, only adding to our concerns from that time. And we understand in that regard that this is the ability to finish the project sooner than later is more likely with either modular homes or SIP construction process. And Sam had Ratty at number 2 had made mention of that kind of thing. SIP construction involves prefabricated walls, and Mr. Kniffen did indicate being open to that as a potential method. Again, I want to reiterate, I do not want to be overly contentious. I really appreciate the earlier constructive conversations that we had on that, and hope that we can address that concern in some way. And then I just wanted to request also going forward that notice be given for public hearings. I don't recall when I reviewed the code if it's every public hearing or certain ones. I know there was at least public hearing cited that part to come in the process. Where public notice must be given by mailing to the neighbors,
Correct.
by posting of signs.
Correct.
That has not been done to date for anything. We became aware of the project only when the surveyors had begun surveying the property. And so we were kind of behind the eight ball from a time perspective that way. So I'd like to respectfully request that pursuant to the village code, adequate notice be given by mail and by signing going forward. And finally, I had argued at prior meetings that the development, the proposed development is not consistent with the predominant character of the existing built or natural landscape. I think that language comes from probably the secret paragraphs, but I just wanted, indicate that Article 3, Section 178-11 of the code specifically states the planning board shall study the practicability, the preliminary plat, taking into consideration the requirements of the community and the best use of the land to be subdivided. Particular attention shall be given to the arrangement, location, and width of the streets, sewage disposal and drainage, lot size and shape and arrangement. And I just wanted to highlight that for your attention. I haven't felt like I've conveyed adequately. I know John used at the time to come and see it a lot. And it really is our, the border directly against the other 5 properties in Carolyn Way, again, divided only by that narrow private road. Again, I really appreciate Mr. Kniffen's willingness to try and work around those concerns, but just the amount of lots and the nature of the proposed subdivided lots, the nature of the lot as a whole, just still concerns us there. I know that at least Mr. Kniffen has cited his understanding that he's not required from a sewage and water perspective. He's just required not to make anything worse, but this code section specifically requires the board to consider those things. And on this subdivision proposal. And I know several neighbors like me don't understand how this should be the best use of the lot, or how the design and width of the private road Carolyn Way that Mr. Kniffen created some decade ago would be the best use and meet some of the considerations for the neighborhood that this code requires. I respectfully request that the board address those comments from their perspective on these matters as well. Thank you.
Thank you. We still have quite a way to go before anything is finally approved. There are quite a few comments. I understand the urgency on your part, and we will certainly make sure that they're addressed. Autumn, can you do a favor and make sure that we have a copy of those specific code areas that he mentioned, so that we can look at them and use them as part of our guides. And then, of course, the difficulty from the applicant standpoint, of course, is that he's building the units as they are sold, as opposed to creating a group of units then going out and trying to sell all the units as they are built. So that is certainly something that presses upon him, and the other items as far as using different construction methods, we'll have to take that up as we walk our way through this.
I understand the logistics are challenging. I wish I knew more how the process worked. If you consider alternatives, I just don't know what they would do. But, thank you.
You're very welcome. So, are there any other people that are here to speak with any public comments, or anyone that may be waiting online?
So, hand raised.
Hi,
Yes, sir. Please go on up.
I didn't submit a comment, and I'm not sure if it's related to what's really preaching on the agenda.
No, it's public comments.
Carolyn Way, what comes out potentially has, there's 5 houses there with 4 cars, potentially 4 cars in each driveway or the garages.
So it appears to be a driveway, but it's really additional 20 cars. You know, not at this point in time, but it's that an additional driveway, if I have it right, is going to come onto Dubois in this development. Is that proposed?
There,
Potentially two.
yeah, potentially two separate driveways. Yeah.
Yes, it seems, if people are making a left out of one and into it at the same time, you do have two different driveways, you're gonna wind up creating a micro gridlock. It's gonna create, with the bike lane coming into two, you know, people now come up the hill on electric paths. So they're coming down the hill paths and coming up the hill paths. Some of them guessing traffic studies have been done. But it's sort of a changing dynamic with electric bikes and moving pretty quick coming up as well. And both directions will be on the same side of the road. If I have it correct, when they complete the lane. So that's a pretty complex traffic pattern in a very short space. And the people coming off of Prospect tend to come off that coming up the Boys towards Oakwood because there's not a stop sign there, and they know that it tends to be local traffic. Accelerate pretty hard coming off that stop sign. So that is a very tight and dicey dynamic. Because there's actually 8 cars coming from 2 houses, and both driveways come from there. We're talking potentially 16 cars from there, 20 cars from Carolyn Way, 2 directional fast-moving bike traffic, plus pedestrians. That is a lot going on. That if the driveway is put on Prospect, A, it doesn't have the bike lane, B, it doesn't have the as fast moving traffic, and it doesn't have the complexity of Caroline Way having potentially 20 cars in it or into it in combination. So while I appreciate people's quality homes and the village, you know, certainly welcome, it's a good thing to have. The driveways onto Dubois seemed, you know, when Caroline went in, there was a blank lot there. So, you know, it was only to do the calculation. Now with that existing, with another driveway, you know, cars that get left out and in, they sort of deadlock each other. And if 2 driveways simultaneously happen to be doing this, you've really got a kind of a standstill pretty quickly. And if you only had 4 cars come out of each driveway, not so likely, but with a greater volume, the likelihood of that playing out is actually pretty realistic. So I guess in short, if the driveway is routed on the Prospect, it seemed to be far less complex traffic pattern to be working into.
Okay,
So that's.
thank you. I've made some notes here and I'll.
Going on a little long.
No, it's quite all right. It's quite all right. And we'll have those as part of the review from tonight. Any other comments? Anyone else here for comments? No? Okay. So we're going to close the comments now. We're going to move on to the next item on our agenda, which is a public hearing, PB 2206 46 Chestnut Street, Prospect Estates. 42 Chestnut Street, yes. Please step right up.
South Chestnut Street.
South Chestnut Street, sorry. So what we're going to do here is we're going to ask for a motion to open the public hearing.
So motion.
And a second.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
So is there anyone here that wants to speak to PB 2206 42 South Chestnut Street, Prospect Estates? Is there anyone online that would like to speak to that at the public hearing? Okay, seeing none, hearing none. I would like to get a motion to close the public hearing for PB 2206.
So motions.
Second,
second.
all in favor?
Aye.
The public hearing is now closed. We are going to move on to application reviews. First application for review is PB 2206 42 South Chestnut Street, Prospect Estates. So we've held a public hearing. And really, we are waiting on all comments from the Ulster County Planning Board, so we really can't make any decisions or pass any resolutions tonight. But I think that it would be worthwhile to address the issue that your neighbor brought up about potentially screening somehow through maybe landscaping, fencing, something of that nature that would assist him in not having to look onto the parking lot. Is that something that you can address for us? Not particularly at this exact moment, but is that something that you might be able to work with your neighbor on to reach a resolution?
It just, you see, the type of material we're using in this driveway, as we know, it's the grass that we grow on forward.
Right.
And the way he wants to block to see in the cars, so he's talking about planting trees in there, not bushes or something else.
Mhm.
And I think that would be very costly to maintain. And the type of trees we're gonna have, they're gonna be green all year round.
Mhm.
So,
Could we consider something, say, like a fence or some of the taller bushes that might be able to do that, just to block the view?
we'll consider some bushes, but how tall they gotta be. So block the view of the cars and stuff, and
Mhm.
they gotta be 5, 6 feet high.
Okay. Yes, they may need to be. And also fencing is an option that might also block that view.
I don't think he was talking about fencing, he just want to look at cars or eyesore. When I spoke to him yesterday.
Mhm. Well, I think it's imperative that we reach some sort of accommodation here.
So we'll consider some bushes, yes, I think would be better than an actual
And
fence.
here's what I would like you guys to do. If the three of you could sit down over a cup of coffee and we come to some sort of resolution so that we don't have to wrestle, and eventually if someone wants to mandate something, to mandate it. By working with your neighbor, I think that would be a much better way to do it.
We wouldn't. That would be wrong. That's it.
And then can you get back with me, because we're gonna have to have another meeting on this.
Sure.
And then can you return and have some ideas about what might be some options that you could take that the two of you agree, or at least get close to agreeing upon.
Yes.
Okay. So I think that's probably a proper way to approach the problem, the issue, because it doesn't seem that both of you are contentious or angry. It's just something that needs to be resolved. So the issues then that we have is that we have held a public hearing. We have authorized the drafting of a resolution of approval. We can't take action on that until the Ulster County Planning Board comments are received. And before we take action on the resolution of approval, I want to hear back and see and hear what sort of accommodation you guys have been able to reach, okay?
But what are we obligated to have by the zoning laws?
By the zoning laws, what are you obligated to have? I can have Corey do an official review for you on that. Of course, he's kind of busy, so that may take another couple of weeks to get done.
I can look into it on well.
Yeah.
Not aware that offer requirements between resident.
You know, there's not, but there are certain latitudes that the planning board can take in requiring certain things that may not be exactly according to the law that are exactly required. But if Corey takes on this idea of having to do a look at this and to consult with you, 2 weeks from now, it's going to be 3 weeks from now for the next meeting, because there's a 2-week period, and then it may take him actually another week after that. So that would put you about a month out before you got a resolution.
I don't think that's necessary unless you want to dive into that. I mean, you can certainly review the zoning.
I think that's a really good idea.
Right.
Okay.
There's any reason to go there.
Yeah, okay. So if you would take care of that, please get back with us on it.
Sure.
In fact, you can even email me through Autumn, and we can kind of check the progress. And if you want me to sit down with you listen, I'll be happy to take the time to do that. Okay,
We'll be able to go with ourselves.
great. That's very good to hear. So unfortunately, that's about all that we can do. And so we're gonna have to move on to our next application.
Okay. Great.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, so the next application is PB 2208 8793 North Chestnut. So do we have anyone here representing that application?
We have David Shepherd on the line on Zoom and Carolyn Holt is here as well.
Ah. Gentlemen, welcome.
We also have Phil Greeley, our traffic consultant as well.
Perfect.
Thank you.
So we received Mr. Holt's review at about 2:30 in the afternoon. And quite honestly, I don't think that we've had the opportunity to give it the kind of review, because I honestly was busy with work until about 6 o'clock. So I was able to read through it briefly, but we haven't had the time to study it, and I know that we would all probably like to do that.
Yes, agree.
So why don't we have, as we know, we've already done a number of steps. Traffic is the issue that is kind of present at the moment. We receive the response. Let's see here. We can discuss this probably to a degree and hear this, but we're certainly going to need to have a little more in-depth look at it. In fact, I'm sorry, I didn't even know that Mr. Holt was going to be here tonight as well. So if you would please, David, we heard from you on your calculations in the last meeting that we had. And Mr. Holt's done some review of those. So if you can kind of lead us through generally, Mr. Holt, on what your review was. Mr. Greeley's here, and so we'll certainly allow a little bit of a conversation here on this issue. So Mr. Holt, if you would please go right ahead.
Sure. So good evening, everyone. Carolyn Holt with DTS Provident. We received information on this application last week and tried to turn around as quickly as possible our review. And just to provide some context, this application is for the special use permit that sits in the overall site plan of Zero Place, which had already received site plan approval. And really, we're focused on how this use would fit into what was considered when the original site plan application went through. And unfortunately, you're dealing with a use that not yet exists in the state of New York. So it makes it a little trickier. And I think what the applicant has framed out to try and ensure that the traffic and parking demand are in line with what was projected with the original site plan application is a good step in that process, where they would initially go on an appointment only basis. So you would only be able to patronize the use if you had an appointment. And they would limit the amount of appointments to control the amount of traffic and parking to fit within the framework. Now, when you look at straight Institute of Transportation Engineers data, which we did in our review for this land, the values are kind of all over the place as far as range of rates with respect to traffic and parking, but they are, more substantial than what would be allowed under this particular use with respect to the parking that would be provided for it. Now that doesn't factor in sharing of parking, and I know there's uses on site that may be overparked, such as the fitness center, since it primarily serves the residents. So that's parking that may be otherwise available to this use if it did have a higher demand. But I think really what our review focused on is that I think the appointment only system is a good system. Obviously, the applicant doesn't want to have to employ that in perpetuity. So I think the other key component of that process is how do you monitor the demand based upon that appointment only system to understand when you can start moving away from it. And I think it's going to be critical to obviously log the amount of appointments, but also log the demand beyond what is allowed. So whether that's through a wait list system to know, well, we had, typically on a Friday from 5 to 6, we're getting a request for 20 appointments, but we're only allowed to fulfill 12 to meet our demand or something like that. So that's a higher demand period. And that I think may start to subside, right, as the initial surge, so to speak, wears off. And also as more of these uses come online, right? I think when if you're the first use, you're going to get a higher demand because you're going to have a bigger draw. But we already know, and we saw it because we're reviewing an application in the town of New Paltz as well for another use similar to this one. So I think what you're going to see is that'll start to dissipate, and I think that's what the applicant has kind of laid out in their appointment only approach. So I think it's going to be critical to have that appointment only approach, but then making sure monitoring is occurring to know when you can start moving away from it. And it may be that you start moving away in interim steps, right? You might find that from 9 to 3 o'clock, you never met the appointment demand. So you can move away from the appointment system during that, but you may still have a bigger surge later in the afternoon as people, are leaving work and want to stop at the facility. But I think in that monitoring, you might also find that some of the other uses don't have as high a parking demand at that time period. So I think that's part of the monitoring as well. But I think what you have in place is something that the applicant is willing to implement and control that traffic and parking demand until such time that it's apparent that it's no longer necessary.
Okay, thank you. That's a good overview. Mr. Greeley or David, would either one of you like to reply?
Yeah, I think, Phil, what I'll do is I'll just sort of take them through our initial responses to the various recommendations. I think we can touch on these and then we can submit them in a written form for your further consideration after this meeting, but just to give you some sense of it. Would that work, John?
That sounds good.
Yeah, I mean, it'll take like 5 minutes. I think there were 2 specific requests that Mr. Holt mentioned in the body of the memo that wasn't in the later recommendations. So I'll touch on those first and then move to the specific recommendations. He suggested that we describe how customers for the dispensary would be directed to the Moriello Pool parking lot during overflow parking conditions. So the way that would work is when overflow parking conditions arise, which we don't anticipate actually, because that's sort of a contingency on a contingency, right? But if that were to occur, the attendant who is placed at the entrance to the parking lot would ask the driver where they are visiting. Those who are residents and have the resident tag obviously are let straight in. If they're visiting one of the other uses, they're allowed in. If they're coming for their designated appointment, they're allowed in. If for any other visitor, like someone who's awaiting the case that is described last time, the idea of someone who's coming and trying to get an appointment and is sort of sitting there idling, waiting for that appointment to come later, they would be directed by the parking attendant to the nearby Moriello parking lot, which, as all of you know, is very close and easy to instruct someone to that lot. Okay, and by the way, Mr. Holt, if at any time something sounds off to you, please interrupt me and I can clarify, okay? The next recommendation was, he said, as parking demand starts around 10 a.m., product deliveries to the site should be performed before 10 a.m., not 12 p.m. And the size, type of the delivery truck and the frequency of the delivery truck should be provided, as well as where the deliveries will be made. So all deliveries are made to the loading zone. And John, you're probably very familiar with where the loading zone is, a designated spot. It doesn't interfere with any other parking spaces, very purposely, right? It can accommodate a full-size box truck. In this case, we have been told by the dispensary uses that the delivery vehicle is a minivan. And the minivan comes typically once per week. We would ask that there be no less than one per day, just in case they have to do an additional one. But we're happy to limit it to before 10 a.m. I think that might be a little bit onerous on the dispensary, given they're talking about one delivery a week, or at very maximum one delivery per day. But if 10 a.m. is the magic hour, then we're happy to say it has to occur before 10 a.m. Regarding other recommendations, he asked, how will walk-ups be handled if the facility does not meet its maximum appointments for that time period? Walk-ups will simply be turned away. They will not be allowed to enter. They must have an established appointment. Now they can walk somewhere down the street and log on and try to get an appointment online, or the backup option they can use, which is to call the phone and have an attendant, have one of the dispensary employees enter them into the system, but they must be shown with an established appointment to enter the facility when the appointment system is in place. If they use the backup option of a phone and it goes to voicemail because the dispensary employees are otherwise occupied, so be it. That's the cost of operations, right? The next recommendation: if monitoring determines higher demand during particular time periods, the monitoring study. You know what I'll do? I'm going to actually share my screen so you guys can read as I'm talking through this. Okay. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. If monitoring determines higher demand during particular time periods, the monitoring study should determine whether additional parking would be available during those time periods due to less demand from the other uses. The monitoring.
Thanks, yeah.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. I was just asking a question. Jordan.
Yeah. The monitoring study that we would implement, or the dispensary would implement, after the dispensary opens, of course, will be for all parking demand, including residential demand in the parking, both in a parking lot and on-street parking. So that we will provide total parking demand and the number of customers that have scheduled appointments across all hours. I don't think we want to do something more onerous than that and have the dispensary ask every person who enters the parking lot what they're doing. I think that would not be practical and would not be fair to our residents. I don't want them being interrogated every time they enter the parking lot, but they would certainly monitor overall parking demand that would include all uses that would be in effect at that time. Now, just keep in mind that right now, there's only one use that is operational at Zero Place, and that is the gym. The other two uses are approved, but are not yet operating, the cafe and the Second Nature refillery, right? Those will come online over the coming months, but right now that's just the situation, right? So whatever uses are present at that time, the dispensary will certainly monitor all demand across all hours of operation. Determine how to project future demand upon discontinuation of the appointment only system. You know, all of us are guessing here. We have these ITE manuals, we have the adjusted ITE data that we presented to you 2 years ago and continue to present, which takes into account the mixed use concept, which takes into account the complete streets principles of Zero Place, right? The adjacency of the rail trail, the on-site bus depot, the easy walkability from many village locations. All of those we
Very still. I think,
David, I
think he
think you
froze.
have frozen.
Oh, shoot. I'm sorry. Yeah, I have a pretty lousy internet connection where I am. What I was saying is, I'm not sure where I let off, but I'll repeat. The question is how to project future demand upon continuation of the appointment only system, right? And include a mechanism for determining how much additional demand will be experienced beyond the allowed appointments. We're fine trying to ask the dispensary to include in their whatever IT system they employ some notion of a wait list, or to at least indicate, when this is a preferred appointment versus a second appointment. I hesitate a little bit to impose all sorts of like application requirements. I don't know what a dispensary is going to use for their appointment system. I don't know what capabilities are on their off-the-shelf computer systems. Do I need to go out and create a custom application in order to build this mechanism of establishing additional demand? It starts to feel a little bit onerous, but I'm sure that, but I imagine there's some way to do that.
Yeah, sorry, David, not to interrupt. I
Yeah.
don't think that's the intent there. I think, maybe it kind of also happens organically based upon the amount of appointments that you're seeing during particular time periods, that if you see you max out, for a 2 to 3 hour period on a Friday or Saturday,
Yeah.
that's where we really need to focus. And maybe it's that, you're not seeing
Yeah.
the full demand appointments,
Right.
and it becomes a non-issue.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. What will be immediately evident in the data is what appointments fill up first, right? And that should tell us pretty quickly what are the highest demand hours of the day. And if we were to employ some sort of hybrid model, as you suggested in your comments, Carlito, about, okay, look, clearly demand's very low in the morning. We don't have to worry about appointments then, but in the afternoon or the after work hours, whatever, when we're seeing those appointments immediately fill up, that's something that we probably need to keep the appointment system in place. That makes a lot of sense to me. Okay, great. Determine whether the appointment requested was the customer's preferred. Oh yeah, and this kind of goes hand in hand with this one, right? Like, how do we collect this? Sorry, I was getting ahead of myself when I was mentioning that. Like, this is what I mean, Mr. Holt, about building a kind of an elaborate scheduling system that asks customers not only to sign up for particular hours, but to indicate if that's their preferred hour, or if that's when the preferred hour would be. And that's when it starts to get a little difficult. I agree with your last comment to say we'll know the sequence of appointments and we'll know the times that are being taken first. And I think that should be enough to give us some clarity on where the problematic hours are, right?
Agreed.
Yeah, okay. Include parking surveys of existing operations to determine peak parking demand for the other existing uses and identify where parking for those may be available for the proposed use. Like I said above, the monitoring study would be for all uses collectively, not just for the dispensary. We will understand the dispensary in isolation from the appointment data, right? Okay. And then Mr. Holt said, well, since we mentioned that oftentimes what Dr. Greeley has seen with other other initial, where a new use drops in and people are super excited about it. Like, I think he gave me an example of Trader Joe's in New Jersey, right? Yeah, and he's saying, look, generally he sees excitement lasting 1 to 2 months. We have no idea how long this demand is going to last. It's going to be 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, who knows, right? Our belief was that 2 weeks of data would give us enough indication whether we're still in the search period or not. Mr. Holt is suggesting that maybe that initial period should be a month. I guess that's fine. I still feel like, what if the demand dies away within days and we're held to the strict 1 month monitoring period when it's kind of crazy to be there, and we're really tying the hands of the dispensary? That's not a good place to be. My feeling is that 2 weeks is enough to have a strict limit, and that we'll know it. We'll have enough data, and we'll be able to figure things out there. And we may have to keep that appointment-based system in there for a year. Who knows? But we we can be reasonable, and the building inspector will be there looking at the data with us and can make a reasonable call. But look, you tell me what that magic number is for the initial period that you want, whether it's 2 weeks or a month, and I'll do that. Okay. And then his last recommendation was the monitoring study will need to clearly demonstrate that demand no longer warrants the need for the appointment only system. Agreed. If demand still exceeds capacity after the 1 month period, we'll stay in the appointment only system. Maybe we never get out of the appointment only system. I will tell you, from the many dispensaries that I have visited that have reached steady state conditions, holy cow, these are large facilities and they do not have a lot of people visiting them. So I'm not worried about that in the long run, but I could be wrong. And if that's the case, we keep the system in place.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you for making the presentation. As a note, there's another member of the board that will be joining us next week, who's already been on the board, and there's a new board member who has past experience who will be joining us as well, so that we should have 1, 2, 3, 4. Myself, we should have a pretty much full board. So at that time, I think going through this would be, again, not to ask you to repeat yourself, would be very helpful. Would it be possible, David, that we could get that document that you just went through? Because I think that would be a study guide first. I'll go through Mr. Paltz, Mr. Greeley, and it could help us as a guide. But I want to make sure that the full board is here before we get render any sort of decisions on this or make any sort of recommendations. I want to get their full input.
You bet.
So that would be great.
Yeah, we'll give you, and John, we'll give you, I mean, those are just responses I put together, 45 minutes ago, right? We'll give you a more complete, written response, including to the body of Mr. Holt's analysis. Okay.
If you get that to us by no later than Wednesday of next week, that will give us time to study it before our next meeting. I agree. There probably there will probably be more than one delivery per week. I mean, if you look at even the smallest restaurants, they require multiple 3-day deliveries. So I cannot imagine that the initial demand would be able to be filled by one time a week. So I agree with that. As far as the length of time on in enforcing some sort of study period, for better or for worse, you're the first one, so we really don't know. And I'm not sure that the dispensaries that I've talked to in Massachusetts may be completely applicable. And so the data that we get from them and what they tell us may not indeed be something that is relevant for what you're doing. We just don't know. So if we can get that information, perhaps we can kind of synthesize it, come up with some ideas for discussion, and perhaps delve into it a little more properly next time.
Yep. Okay.
Zach, any comments? Rachel, any comments on that?
No, I mean, I thought some of the initial responses sounded right to me, but I think just we need a little more time to look at both sides and read through the reports.
Rachel, any comments?
I think Mr. Shevler sounded perfectly reasonable to me. I don't have any objections to anything he said.
Okay. So if you guys can send that over to us, and we got Mr. Holt's study, perhaps we can look at the two and then start to come to a better agreement, a more refined idea of what we're going to need to ask. So with that in mind, let's see, where are we here? So really, that's about all we can do. We will require a public hearing, and I think after our studies, then the next thing we'll do after looking at that study is we'll probably try to move closer towards a public hearing. Other than that, that's really about all we can do for tonight. Thank you both, Dr. Phil and Carolyn, for coming on and making the presentation. David, thank you as always.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys, for coming. Thanks, Carlito.
Good night.
So next, we're going to move to the next application, PB 2208. Nope, that's what we just did. My apologies. So next, we are moving to PB 2121, Prospect Street and Henry W. Dubois Drive. You just go ahead and take your seat there. Okay, so we have some comments from our engineer. And let's see if I can get to those.
I believe he has, yeah, I think they're right here, actually.
Yeah, there we go. So we did get some comments from Brinier and Larios, just to read that so that you're aware, and everyone here who's here for this particular application is aware. It says this is a second memo related to the 4-lot subdivision proposed at Prospect Street and Henry Dubois Drive. With respect to seeker, no significant impacts were identified in our review of the subdivision. With respect to drainage and stormwater issues, we understand that a detailed site plan review will occur on each lot prior to construction permits being issued. In addition to this, we recommend the following. One, a general stormwater report to be prepared for the subdivision. And Floyd will get you a copy of this, so you don't have to. Okay, good. With respect to drainage and stormwater, we understand that a detailed site plan review will occur. Okay, thank you. One, a general stormwater report be prepared for the subdivision utilizing a 25-year design storm for pre and post development runoff. Emphasis and goal should be on no increase onto neighboring properties. Second is a general sizing of the stormwater features, i.e. the rain garden, be prepared and included in the report and on the subdivision plat that will serve as both a water quality temperature and a flow attenuation feature. So looking at that general stormwater report, emphasis and goal on no increase onto neighboring properties. As you're well aware, you're not allowed to have any increase greater than what currently is on the offlow for that area. And you've taken some mitigation efforts in terms of the rain garden. Are there other methods that perhaps we are aware of that you might be able to take that would be proper and assist in reducing the flow onto the land for some of the residents?
When we did the initial survey, we identified what the existing conditions are with where the ridge, there's a ridge that travels through the property that goes from east to west. And based on where the existing ridge is and which way the flow goes, approximately 55% of the property is flowing towards Prospect Street and 45% is flowing towards Henry Dubois. Then we submitted what that ridge adjustment is based on the proposed grading, and reduced the amount going to Prospect Street, where it has been identified as having problems. Through the grading, there is some reduction there.
Now, is this a reduction in percentage or an actual flow?
So this would be actual flow compared to what it is now. So,
okay.
So there will be the mitigating methods for stormwater. So there'll be no increase, but there'll actually be a reduction going to Prospect Street.
Okay.
And because we're shifting the grades, we're still not reducing the amount coming off of the property, but we're shifting some of it towards some boys.
Okay.
And less of it to Prospect Street.
Okay.
Specifically because it then flows towards that one manhole that we've identified as having issues there in the street.
And that is something that I think we entered into the record last time, that speaking with Blue, he said that the issue is that that pipe on Prospect runs underneath the street and then onto private property, and they don't have any agreements to do any work on that, so that flow essentially is what it is, because they can't really do anything about it. What else do we have here? Let's see. So based upon the total bits of information from our engineer, our attorney has recommended, based on such comments, it would be appropriate for the planning board to vote on a motion to waive the preliminary plat requirements of 178-22 and permit the subdivider to furnish the information specified in 178-23 C1 in accordance with the village code. So what I'm going to do then is request a motion to waive the preliminary plat requirements of 178-22, permit the subdivider to furnish the information specified in 178-23 C1 in accordance with village code 178-11B.
So just so I'm clear, this is just allowing the applicant to put together a more detailed
Correct.
plan, essentially, with some of this information the engineer needs.
Correct.
Yeah, so motioned.
And second, Rachel?
From my reading of the letter, the lawyer didn't recommend waiving the requirements. They just they didn't recommend waiving them. They just said there was no reason not to waive them. But I think that in light of all of the comments that have been made, and just in light of the fact that I think that dividing it up into 4 parcels may not be appropriate. There are many other alternatives where, you know, he could make just as much money, build one house, build a small building, build a cluster. There are so many more alternatives that would be much more conducive to the environment and the neighborhood, that I don't think that I would not be in favor of waiving anything right now.
Okay. Okay. No, that's fair. So I did notice, Dennis, you are here. So I guess what I'm looking for then is a second on that motion, or do we want to wait until the following meeting when we have a little bit more time to discuss it and go further into the information?
I'll leave, just let him out by himself. He'll come right up to me, okay?
Dennis, your opinion?
Let's see.
No, I've looked at it extensively. I have no issues at all with it. And I agree, you know, if we just, as Zach said, we're just voting to move forward to get some more detail, I'm fine with that.
Okay. So Zach has provided, I've asked for the motion, and Zach has made the first move, and then looking for second on that motion.
Second.
So all in favor? Aye. All
Aye.
opposed? Rachel, that's fine.
Opposed.
Okay, and so Rachel is opposed to that, so the motion does carry. So that's just the preliminary plat requirements that you're getting the waiver on, and so we'll expect more detailed information. We received information from, as we noted, Ann Muller to to assist in channeling flow of runoff away from their home and out to the street. We also heard from Perry a little earlier on some rather detailed aspects of it, which we need to better understand. And I think that we're going to need to get our attorney to review those comments to make sure that we are in understanding of them, so that we don't so that we neither ask for something that you can't provide, nor not ask for something which the people that have made public comments are requesting. So we're going to get some information out. I'll probably have that information run by our attorney and also by the engineer to see what items would apply. So that's really kind of the although our engineer says that there's made some comments, I think that we need to look at that a little bit further to make sure that we're secure on that.
Yeah, I also was wondering at what point we can ask the Ulster County, or sorry, not Ulster County Planning Board, I guess the DOT, whoever is responsible for traffic on Henry W. Dubois, about those driveways. I am concerned about how the driveways are going to interact with Caroline Drive and the new bike lane. So
well, we can certainly make a request from the DOT to give us an analysis on that. We could also ask Mr. Holt what his view is on it.
Maybe that would be the better step.
Okay, and maybe that would perhaps get us the answer actually much more rapidly than waiting for the Department of Transportation.
True.
So what I would like to do, and I'll take the sense of the board, is I would like for Mr. Holt and Provident to do an initial study of the traffic and how the driveways and the entry and exit of the cars from that, and the quantity of traffic that would be there, how that will affect Henry W. Dubois and the bike lane that is going to be there, the proposed bike lane. And do we know what side the bike lane is going to be on yet?
South
side?
I've spoken to the consultants.
Okay.
Designing.
Okay, and what do they have to say?
Only that there was a guardrail proposed, but if I can work with them, they can reduce the guardrail and set the trail back away a little more.
So that was the guardrail on
between
the two driveways.
Guardrail between the bike lane and the road.
Okay.
Some spots have guardrails,
right?
Because it's so condensed, because they can't go on people's properties and try to make it more conducive for the bike lane to be further away. So they were kind of happy to know that I could, allow them to move it away from the road a little more.
Okay.
In order to eliminate the guardrail. That seems to be a preference on their part, especially because we had the guardrail, you have to stop and start it.
Right.
For each driveway.
Right.
Doesn't work, and I think the guardrail also, I don't know what other parts of the street are gonna have the guardrail, but I'm guessing the upper part of Henry Dubois on the way to road will have some guardrail.
Right.
As well.
Okay. Can you get us that information that you got from him? Do you have anything written from him, or is this just all in conversation?
I made the phone calls, but it's been a while, so I can go back in a few minutes.
Yeah, if you would, please, and if we can get those emails sent to Arnold, that she can coordinate that information flow, because I think that's going to be necessary. And then I'm going to reach out to Mr. Holt and speak to him and see what he would need to do and how quickly he thinks he can get that done, so that we can kind of move things forward a little bit. So what we really need to do then is we've reviewed the engineer's report. We have waived the initial preliminary plat requirements, so we can gain more information. We're going to talk about the traffic and see if we can get some opinions from DOT. And whether Mr. Holt can provide us some information. We've discussed the flow, just kind of generally discuss the flow analysis of what we need, and how it's to work. So really, we're kind of at a stopping point. So if you can get that information, get it to Autumn, she can coordinate with us, and then I think that we're going to have a discussion next time. And Autumn, please place this in your notes. I know that some of the people had talked about different construction methods, and if you could just address those in terms of how that would work for that project, so that we can minimize the inconvenience to the other the people who live there. Also, if you could address things that in terms of the safety issues that they were talking about for the children, just so that we can be clear on how that would operate. I know there was a request to get a timeline on building. I understand how difficult that is, because you've not done anything yet to the land, and you're selling the lots one by one, so you can't really say what a construction schedule would be, especially as we come into winter. So we'll probably want to discuss that. Just be prepared to discuss that at our next meeting. And that addresses the primary issues that were on the letters and that folks spoke about. So that's kind of where we are. Okay.
Yeah, I got quite a bit of work just with the comments.
Yeah. So if you can, again, if you would like to address it personally with the group, I would be happy to sit in on that. To hear what both parties have to say. Otherwise, we can bring it to the meeting and discuss it there. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time coming in on this. So the next thing that we're going to do. Last thing is, oh yes, one of the things, I'm sorry, Floyd, just a moment here. Let's go through just a couple things. The public hearing is required, but we're not gonna do that as of yet until we're satisfied with the subdivision plan. Also, because it's within 500 feet of the town boundary, any notices of the public hearing will have to go to the town clerk, as well as the village clerk. Have any comments been received from the Empire State Trail Commission?
No.
No. Okay. Sorry, I just want to go over this check off list here. All 4 lots show parking space in the front yard, parking spaces on 1 through 4 also in the side yard. Corey should review and advise whether the positioning of those would require a variance or would constitute parking in an established driveway, which is allowed under 21243. And note, as previously discussed, although you're not pursuing a site plan approval for the lots at this time, the seeker review must consider the construction of single-family homes on these lots as part of the action to avoid a segmented environmental review. So we'll have to do them all at once. The subdivision site note number 3 currently states as follows. Each of the proposed houses on these 4 lots will have two car garages and 1 parking space in front of each of the garages, providing a total of 3 parking spaces per lot. Correct? Says this note should be revised to read as follows, and Autumn can get this to you. The potential layout showed the parking requirements could be met for a 3-bedroom detached single-family dwelling on each lot by providing a 2-car garage and 1 parking space in front of each garage. Each of the 4 lots will be required to comply with applicable parking requirements at the time of site plan approval. Additional spaces will be required for homes containing over 3 bedrooms as set forth in the village code at 21247.
Lots aren't large enough, as you know, village code requires additional land for 4 bedrooms, so none of these meet this, and I'm not asking for anything.
So we met for 3 bedrooms, okay, all right, okay. Additional spaces required for homes containing over 3 bedrooms, yeah, okay, got it, okay, all right, so we're gonna, that isn't, just, we'll have to revise that, but, you're not gonna ask for that, so that's fine. We will have to discuss the, parkland requirements at some point, and we'll probably do that when we have a larger group here. So just be, aware and ready for that, because as you know, from having been on the board, that, the village, there are a set of findings, which can be done in the resolution of approval. One, that the village has need for parkland and recreation facilities. 2, that the subdivision, which will add 4 new residential building lots, will contribute to that need. And 3, that a proper case for requiring a public park or recreation area pursuant to the village code 178-19 and state law, but that a suitable public park or recreation area of adequate size cannot be appropriately located on the plat. So the applicant will be required to deposit a cash payment in lieu of land reservation with the village clerk in such amount as set by the village board of trustees. So that will be coming up as well. And that's the whole checklist right there. Okay, thank you. So the next item that we have on the agenda is PB 2211, 137 Chestnut Street Trail Link LLC. Gentlemen, ladies, if you please come up and we'll get started on this. So for other members of the board, this is an application for site plan and special use permit approval to construct a 63,490 square foot 3-story mixed-use building containing 44 residential units and 12,106 square feet of office space on a plus or minus 3.03 acre parcel located along Chestnut Street, State Route 32 in the NBR mixed residential mixed use district. There are special use permits that are required. 1 is for the mixed use building, 2 for general professional offices, and 3 for first floor apartments facing away from Route 32 north, unless they are accessible units. We can go through some of the presentation tonight. We want to listen to that presentation. We'll look at potentially classifying the action as the unlisted action under seeker. And then we will want to declare our intent to be the lead agency under seeker. And I've got some notes from our attorney on some 2 specific items here. First is the bulk table indicates height variance is required. What is the height variance in the NBR? 35?
Yeah, why don't we let them present first? And
Yeah, we've got some other issues too. So why don't you give us your presentation? Let's hear what you got to say.
I'm just going to start, if it's okay.
Sure.
My name is Melissa Cherubino. I'm a wife of House. I'm representing the owners and developers. This is just involved with our construction, and it's got our own rapport with both experienced builders and developers. And I think that you'll find this project fits that particular space and fits the village's vision for that particular zoning district, the neighborhood business residential district. Brick facing, the 3-story height. A lot of the features really will add a transitional element, but also anchor. And so what we're hoping tonight is just to have a conversation. We've got the materials from our office, from these folks, and had a chance to review them a little bit. We just wanted some feedback we have every intention of submitting more information later and want to keep it kind of light and
Sure.
just as a conversation. So we have Nick Warner as the project manager, and we have Corey. He's going to actually present the sign.
Please go right ahead.
There we go for it. Okay. Corey Robinson, Colliers Engineering Design, we're the civil engineers for the project. So, the project site is located off of North Chestnut Street, or Route 32. It's like 3/4 of a mile north of Main Street, pretty much right around the corner here. It's on the west side of the street. Between the rail trail to the south is Fry Court, HVAC, to the north is the car wash, across the street is the condos. So let you know where we're at. So the existing site's about 3 acres. It has some wetlands, and about half of it, the north half, is in 100-year floodplain. It was recently developed with a 1-story like metal building that was demolished, so what's left over is just the foundation and gravel parking area. So it's a vacant lot right now. What we are proposing to do is this 3-story multi-use building. On the first floor is a mix of commercial and residential uses. The second and third floors are going to be residential units. The development in the floodplain, we are hoping for like a net zero increase, so we're not going to impact any of the flood storage. There's a minor amount of wetland disturbance proposed. We're relocating the entrance a bit north on Chestnut Street. So that's going to cut into the wetland that's been created just by the drainage ditch that dumps across North Chestnut onto the side and onto the end of the street. There's also a small amount of wetland disturbance at the back of the site for a connection that we're making to the rail trail. There's utilities serving the site. We're going to streetscape the frontage in accordance with the code. We've provided parking spaces, bicycle parking, and electrical vehicle charging spaces also. That's the gist of it. Happy to answer any questions.
Nick was actually provide some vision goals.
Sure. So, it's right on the board. It's in the first floor. John, you had mentioned variance requirements for the first floor units. We intend for all these units to be accessible, just so you know. So I don't think we'll be making a request for a variance for those, or we'll need a variance for those units. There is still a discussion ongoing as to the second and third floor, and as to whether or not those units will be elderly units or not. We are in discussions and have spoken to HCR about making those 55 and older units and possibly utilizing 9% tax credits for those. However, we have not started a formal application for those as of yet. And so that is something that's under consideration in making those units affordable. However, we haven't finalized that. In addition, as part of our proposal, we intend to incorporate a solar array on the roof of this project that will most likely power the entire first floor commercial space, as well as provide for the solar charging stations in the parking lots, the lighting in the parking lots, and some additional use that will take place for things such as the maintenance office, the renting, the leasing office, and some of the common area lighting that we will have throughout the property as well. It's an excellent redevelopment of a site that had been used previously as a Gateway Community Industries property, and it fits within the MBR district. We are asking for that height variance. I believe the request is for 3 feet in order to accommodate the heights that we need. And ultimately, it fits within the character of what the MBR has asked for the development in this area. Our team, Justin Bowe, many years in the construction business, and Scott Arnold, obviously one of the leaders in the Northeast in Mitsubishi Green Energy split systems.
My background in the last 20 years has been in the development and construction of affordable housing here in the Hudson Valley. So we put together an excellent team, and we think we are ready to redevelop this property for the village in its use. So we're happy to answer any questions and go through your comments that you have for us tonight.
So what's the total occupancy that you're looking for?
It would be 44 units, 1 and 2 bedrooms, so estimated number of people, somewhere in the neighborhood of probably 65 individuals would live there. If it goes as a senior project,
Right.
probably the breakdown.
The thing that struck me when I was reviewing the PDF, it's that it's going to be a half acre less than for this one.
That's great. Yeah, I think it's a really exciting project, and I do feel like it's fits in well with the goals of the NBR. And would, flow nicely with Zero Place and the other proposed project next to that.
I couldn't agree more, Zach. I happened to walk the property today, and putting all of with what Roddy wants to put up, the new stewards, and now this, it's certainly improving that MBR to make that truly a gateway into New Paltz from people coming down from the north. So I agree with you completely. It's a exciting project, and it's going to be very beneficial to New Paltz.
So you said there's going to be some disturbance of the wetland, and that was the wetland in the front as well as in the back. Is that correct?
That's right. It's a total of right now 1,720 square feet of wetland disturbance, so it's 4/100ths of an acre. It's an Army Corps wetland. We had it flagged by a wetland ecologist in March of this year. So that's what's shown on the plan. We intend to handle it with a PCN submission.
So that would be here down where the trail connection would be.
There's a small amount here, and then at the entrance to our curb cut.
Okay, so it's the curb cut. This is creating it, and then access to the rail trail is creating the other.
Correct.
Is there any way you can make access to the rail trail without wetland disturbance?
No, the whole rear of the property there is all on the street, is all wetland, so there's no way to get to the right without going through the wetland.
Okay.
But it wouldn't be a impervious surface necessarily, right? The trail would just be like a gravel trail or something.
It could be a gravel trail, and then a bridge over the stream.
Okay. I had a question about that, like, corridor in the middle of the commercial area. So is that an actual like outdoor space that will separate the two buildings?
I believe it's gonna be covered above the first floor. The first floor is gonna be open as a walkway kind of from the street to get into.
Okay, I see.
The residents and the uses of the first floor.
I see.
So you completed your full EAF. We'll dig into this on the next meeting or so.
Sure, oh yeah, that'd be great.
One of the goals of the project is to kind of champion the idea of foot traffic and bike traffic and limiting the need for vehicles to community members to the village.
Right.
And that's why we're really liking the idea of having a pass through and a natural flowing path through the property that connects to the rail trail, one that doesn't create a feeling of trespassing. It's
Right.
actually to corral people to the trail so they can actually commute back and forth via the trail instead of using vehicles.
The code, they have all the bike racks up front.
Okay.
There's also a pedestrian walkway already existing, it takes you over to the rec center and then you get to the pool as well, so it's all kind of the thought was to encourage all of that foot traffic.
That's a pedestrian walk. That goes to the old Stewart's property, right?
Yeah.
The ours actually goes directly across to the rec center. We have a cross. Yeah, that cross.
existing.
Any other questions that we need to start with? I mean, this is a good start. You have your package pretty complete on it. We all should have the EAS that are in the file. Well, it's hard copies. We also have hard copies of these that are available if you want to look at them more closely.
Okay.
Anything else we need to discuss with you guys? Did Rachel, anything that you want to bring out with this?
I walked around there, but I'm having trouble sort of visualizing exactly where it is. So I definitely will have more to say once I've walked around there. I'm looking at it. Who's directly to your north there? What's directly to the north of the property?
The scrubbed up car wash.
Oh, I see, the car wash. I see. So, okay. So, how much of the, I don't remember exactly, how much more impervious surface or how much more pervious surface are you going to be creating by this development?
Actually a half acre less.
What?
It's actually a half acre less impervious surface.
Okay, so that's good. I like the connection to the rail trail. It's that's actually quite useful because people come across the street there from either from the I guess east of the property. But so that whole property, I just don't remember exactly what it looks like. It's mostly paved already, correct?
Correct.
Correct, and it's currently people coming from the pool or from the town community center would have to go down towards Bosse's to the golf course to connect to the rail trail, or the opposite direction, but down to Stewart's. This will offer a medium breakpoint where they'll be able to access the trail more readily, and also in the back piece, which is considered wetland, we're really aiming to keep that an open space, a green space, like a community gathering area. With outdoor event, like barbecue, picnic tables, where community members that live there and don't live there come up the trail and enjoy a little bit of a park in the back of the property.
It's great. I like the fact that the building will be up against the street, and then the back, then you have a back, and then you have a space between the parking lot and the trail. Which I'm assuming you're going to plant up.
Yeah, that it would be encouraged for folks, walking or biking to even stop for a rest, just a spot to recreate back there.
I don't remember if that's near an area on the rail trail that has been, I guess there have been a couple of attempts there by beavers to sort of colonize that area right there, and also a little bit further down, because there's that stream that goes through there. And I'm wondering how you feel about that. If you noticed some beaver activity, what would you do?
So because I actually own the property directly next to it and operate my business there, and we spend quite a bit of time in the back there, we observe, and me and my wife are nature advocates who are nature hikers, and I can say I get 30,000 steps on the weekends, both days, with my boys, my wife. So we're huge into conservation and just being out in nature. We would do everything that we needed to do to preserve whatever was happening there, ecologically or in as far as natural habitats go. I haven't witnessed anything back there, but certainly we'd be keeping a sharp eye out for it.
Thank you. Yes, it's really important because they've been driven out of other areas. And I believe that there was definitely an effort to get them out of that area. Like if you look up and down the stream the next time you're walking on the rail trail, look on either side and you'll see where the chews are. You can see where they tried to move in, cut down a few trees, and then they made an impoundment that got destroyed on either side of the rail trail right near there. The next time you go take a look at it, it would be wonderful if they were actually allowed to exist there and to make a pond near the rail trail. humans are just as good, if not better, sometimes engineers than beavers, and we're able to accommodate them when we try.
Gonna keep an eye out for that. I'll be mindful. Thank you for pointing it out.
Corey's happy to hear that. You can do better engineer than a beaver.
Yeah, that tributary was it tributary 137. I think it was north of there. But before you right at the car wash, and yeah, and I think in that area almost directly behind the car wash is where the last time I saw them. That's been 3 or 4 years now. So okay, all right. So let's finish up with some of the things we need to do. So what we want to do now is we want to classify this action as unlisted under seeker. So I would like to get a motion to classify the action as unlisted under seeker.
So moved.
And second?
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So that motion has passed. The next thing we need to do is, because we do now have seeker active, we want to declare our intent to become the lead agency. We'll have our attorney prepare a lead agency notice that Autumn can send out to the involved agencies together with the application documents. So may I get a motion, please, to declare the intent of the New Paltz Planning Board to be the lead agency for this application seeker review.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So we have now declared our intention to be the lead agency for this secret review. Back to some of the issues that they had is that they have a bulk table that indicates a height variance is required. I think we just discussed that. Also the note from our attorney that the applicant will need to comply with the village's affordable housing law, which requires the applicant to set aside at least 10% of residential units for affordable housing needs. The applicant proposes 44 units, which means that at least 5 must be affordable units. I think you've already addressed that, so yeah. Okay. So with that, I think my personal view is that this is a good project for that space, and I think it will add an addition to the NVR as it moves farther out. And certainly add to the district in a very positive way. So we'll have other information. We'll have you on pretty soon, and we'll get started digging into your seeker, into your EAF, and it'll be a good time.
John, do we need a formal referral to the ZBA?
Not yet, but we will. I think that we're going to discuss that. I know that when we have our full board here. Right now, we are still 2 members, permanent members short, plus we had a member who had to resign for business reasons. So I want to make sure that they're all here so that they all get a voice in this, as opposed to just a couple of us.
Is that thing for do you have a TDE or a planning board engineer that you use?
We do. We use Dennis Larios. He is our engineer. And we'll certainly seek his consultation on this and his opinions on it, but yeah, he's the guy we use. And then I don't think we'll need to have any sort of traffic study done just on the surface here. Given the width of the entry and exit way into the area. So we may not need to do any sort of traffic study. Again, we'll have to, as we dig into it, we'll know more about it. But yeah, that's it. Okay. Thank you very much, and we'll have some communication coming out to you here in the next week.
Great.
You are very welcome. Thank you. And that leads us to the final application, which is PB 2212, 6th Road Street. So if 6th Grove Street will please come up and have a seat here so we can begin this process. Hi there. Good. So this is an application for a site plan approval to construct an approximately 418 square foot addition on an existing single family dwelling. Property located on Grove Street, consists of approximately 0.17 acres in the R2 district. This is a type 2 action. Construction or expansion of single family or 2-family, 3-family residence on an approved lot. As it is within 500 feet of State Route 32, is still exempt under referral under the agreement with the Ulster County Planning Board as a 1-family residential site that is a type 2 action, so long as it meets the following requirements and standards. Increase in parking is not required. Channelized access to state or county roads exists or proposed. And no disturbance of 1 or more acres of land. And finally, no new structure developed in the 100-year floodplain, which is something we want to discuss. So please tell us a little bit about what you're trying to do.
So I'm Robin Hill, sitting with Alphandria Architecture. This is Nick Horelick, the homeowner. And just want to put a small, it actually the total square footage is 200, about 200 for the ground floor and 200 for the second floor. So around 400 square feet total. In addition to it, we create a larger family room and larger master bedroom and bath and closet. It's
Pretty simple.
Yep.
There are some things that we're going to need to do here, but I guess the first thing we need to do is to classify the action as a type 2 under seeker. So why don't we do that? I need a motion to classify this action as a type 2 under seeker.
So motioned.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So it is now a type 2 action under seeker. We're going to have Corey perform a zoning review, including a review of whether the area variance is needed for the addition, whether an increase in parking space is required. Some other issues I think which you may be aware of that as far as the legality of having a driveway parking on an adjacent property. And there seems to be a discrepancy between the EA question 16, which indicates property is not within the 100-year floodplain and the plan, which makes a reference to the 100-year floodplain zone X. Does that make sense to you, or did I?
I'll have to take a look at it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's something that we're going to need to do, to the discrepancy between those. Also, the proposed addition appears partially within the side yard setback.
The existing. Yep.
And
That's the roof. That's just the roof line.
that's just the roof line?
Correct.
Okay. Please make a note of that, and Otto, if you can make a note of that as well. For some reason, it appeared to be a line of the actual building itself, so, okay. The plan should show the parking spaces. And then finally, there is an existing shed on the adjacent property that encroaches onto the applicant's property. We're going to need to have our building code officer take a look at that and give us a better reading of it. I'm not completely certain about the issues surrounding it. But we're certainly going to need to have them weigh in on it. So you might reach out to Corey to discuss that. I think the sooner you can get his attention, the better. As I was explaining to one of the initial applicants, very busy. So you need to stay on him about that. It's not that he intends to ignore, it's just he's very busy.
I've spoken with him about this project a little bit already, so.
Okay, did they have any? Do you have any comment on the existing shed from the adjacent property?
The homeowner actually owns the adjacent lot, so it's his shed.
The lots were combined, the previous owners, I think it's subdivided it, right?
Right.
So it's all kind of still think of it as one big property, even though it's technically subdivided. So I mean, yeah, that's our shed.
And it is on a piece of property that you own.
Yes.
Okay. So we need to, that's good.
Yeah, it's 4 and 6, so that's
Okay.
why the driveway technically right now is on lot number 4.
Okay, that might not be. So make sure that. Corey, that he becomes aware of that, and we'll make sure that our attorney is aware of it as well. That may. It's very relevant, that may save you some time on that. So really the only other note she has, our attorney, is that the applicant, the application and all related paperwork needs to be signed.
Oh, but you took care of it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Done. So really, what where we are at now is, we've had a look at it. Any comments or discussions on the addition of the 400 square, the 200 below and 200 above?
Yeah, I mean, I think it all looks pretty good to me. The only thing about the side yard setback is it seems like the new porch you're building is also directly under the roof line there, just looking at the elevations. And so I'm not sure that, you know, if that aspect of it complies with the zoning. I think it's
I'm not sure I understand.
The stairs.
The stairs?
yes, the stairs that it says is going to be part of the addition, new porch with the stairs down to the ground. I mean, maybe that's not an issue. I think it's just something that Corey will need to look at.
Yeah, I didn't catch that, so. Anything else? See there?
No. Other than
Okay,
that,
you got something I didn't notice, so. Rachel, any comments on this at the moment?
No.
All right, so really, so proposed addition is partially within the side yard setback, the primary variance. Approaching the existing home may be allowed to continue as a pre-existing legal nonconformity. The proposed addition within the setback would increase the nonconformity and require variance unless Corey determines otherwise. Plan should show the parking spaces. Survey appears to indicate the driveway is located on the adjacent property, but that it is not shown on the proposed site plan and appears to be prohibited. Did we just discuss the parking on this parking spaces?
we discussed the driveway, but I don't think we.
The parking spaces.
Yeah.
Residential districts, required parking spaces in residential districts shall be provided on buildable portion of the same lot as the use such parking spaces serve. No parking is permitted on any required yard or open spaces except if the parking is allowed in established driveways. And then the existing shed, which you may have cured. So yeah, really, we just need to have you sit with Corey and go through those items to make sure that they all conform and meet his standards or the standards that are in the code.
Okay.
Other than that, that's really about it. This will probably be the easiest application we have, and we so yeah. So if you just get in touch with Corey, let's get this all worked out, and then we can probably move this along pretty rapidly.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Excellent.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
So much. Appreciate your time.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you. Good
So
night.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have a letter from Paltz. No, you're good. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Good. Shall I read that?
Yes. If you would. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt, but since we're down one more board member, we received a letter from Tom Peterson on August 12th, and I will read that now.
Sure.
Dear Chairman Linton, members of the planning board, and members of the village board, are best informed that due to recent circumstances, I will need to resign my position as alternate on the village planning board. I want to extend my gratitude for the opportunity. My 2 years on the board have been a great learning experience and a unique opportunity to see how the village functions. I hope in the future that circumstances may change and that I will have the opportunity to work with you again. Thank you again, and I wish you all the best. Sincerely, Tom Peterson.
Thank you, Tom. We hate to accept that resignation, but we do understand. So we will, we'll move on here. Just a note, next week, we will have, I think everybody will be on board next week. And again, I would like to ask if at all possible that all members are here and present at our next meeting so that we can have a full board and more robust and animated discussions. Any further public comments from anyone, Autumn, that you see?
Nobody in the room.
Okay, very good. So in that case, I would like a motion to adjourn, please.
So motioned.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Uh,
Aye. And so we are adjourned. Thank you very much for the meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.